We've got one guest here for this Monday edition of Bang the Book Radio. That is Brian Blessing, the host of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline. Brian, how's it going today, man?
Hey, Adam. How you doing, pal?
Doing very well, buddy. Appreciate the time here. Appreciate your flexibility switching from Tuesday to Monday. The only problem is I think you and I are both going to be thrown off all week now.
You know what? There's so much going on, kid. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, turn the page. What's on tonight? What's coming up tomorrow? I'm sitting here this morning, and the combine's behind us, and looking at mock drafts, and the NHL's turning for home, the push for the playoffs, NBA, and listening to your discussion. Here we go with basically championship weeks. It's really not championship week, right? I mean, we got conference tournaments coming up. It's a great time of year.
It is. It's a very busy time of year, and I'm happy to be feeling better because I'm back to being my high-volume, high-octane self, and there's no better time to be that than the month of March, especially with how much I pour into baseball. And, something that we're not even going to talk about here yet in one of our segments, Brian, but also we're starting to get into the better races for the Road to Kentucky Derby as well this month. So, I mean, for you, it's just got to be out of control.
Oh, yeah. Saturday was a massive disappointment. I had hidden scroll 50-1 for the Kentucky Derby, and in the Fountain of Youth went off as the favorite, even money. And for the life of me, I don't know. And Joel Rosario is a great jockey. It's easy to second guess guys, but what this guy was thinking with a chance to pick up some Derby points and in the process teach this horse something. He goes and gets him cooked in a ridiculous speed duel with a 100-1 shot, and the horse flattened out and finished fourth. I'm hoping Bill Mott doesn't give up on this horse. I hope they give him one more chance because, sometimes you say the horse isn't good enough. I really think the horse was compromised by the decisions the jockey made during the race. But that's just one of all the preps that are coming up. Yeah,
it's an insanely busy time of year. I know you're definitely looking forward to things calming down a little bit whenever that actually happens. And, I know I am as well here. But let's start by talking some NHL because a week ago was the trade deadline. And we saw a flurry of activity, particularly right around the deadline time as a lot of trades were backed up at the NHL central offices. And deals were basically announced until, I think, 5 o'clock Eastern time or something like that. So now we're a week removed from that. Have you seen any teams get a post-trade deadline bump?
I think they're still, it's kind of sorted out. I think the one's right here. Mark Stone's arrival, and all of a sudden, Vegas has won 4 in a row, albeit the last 2 games have been dominant. They could have lost the first 2 games of this 4-game win streak. But it's funny, Stone's arrival is not like he's lighting it up with points, but this team is carrying themselves a little differently. And honestly, it was one of the first times, it's only happened a handful of times this year, when this team went to the Stanley Cup Finals last year, they were rolling 4 lines. And that was the beauty of it, that Gallant would put the 4th line out there in a 3-3 game with 3 minutes to go with confidence. This year, it's just that something's always been off. Since Stone arrived, it's gotten Max Pacioretty going, and then by dropping some guy 3rd line, and then the 4th line's always been good. Yesterday, the 4th line was dominant in a 3-0 shutout of Vancouver. So one guy's arrival has made Vegas a different team. In fact, Fleury's got back-to-back shutouts, hasn't given up a goal now in 160-plus minutes. Columbus has got an army of guys, but it's been a mixed bag. And, I mean, it's right in your backyard, man. I mean, Columbus is all in, and, to this point, it's still a little bit of a learning curve here to see, what they're going to do. Pittsburgh maybe, hanging around now and starting to right the ship. I think the one that didn't do a lot, and I do believe it's been a great season, Adam, is Montreal. And I think Montreal might be in slip and slide mode here. And then the other teams in the West. The biggest one, and they didn't do a whole heck of a lot. How about Arizona? Arizona's won 6 in a row, and for 20 minutes got themselves back in the playoffs the other night. Went by Minnesota before Minnesota, Calgary, and Calgary. But Arizona's knee-deep in it, and Rick Tocchet is doing a great job with that team.
Yeah, I'd be happy to see Arizona make it. Obviously, there's not a lot of buzz for that team there in Glendale, but it would still be nice to see them, kind of get something for this youth movement that they've put together, not just on the ice, but also in the front office. The Columbus thing, I mean, man, if the playoffs started today, they're out. And obviously there's a ton of games left to go, a lot of maneuvering to still be done. But, you can't lose 4-0 to Edmonton at home after you went all in and you basically traded the next 2 drafts. You can't let that happen and then follow it up by getting dominated by Winnipeg at home. Real bad look for the Jackets last week.
Yeah, that's, a lot of new guys, and they find a groove. The first order of business is to get in, right? I mean, all of a sudden you kind of pencil them in with all the moves they made, but maybe not so fast, right? I mean, there's a bit of a transition stage going on there. Buddy, all the things we talk about, we've been doing this now a couple of years together. Some things are just tried and true, and it's like manna from heaven. The dad's trip has obviously in the last 3 years turned into this ridiculous gift from the betting gods. There's other thing after trade deadline, certain guys are going to go off, and then water will find its level. The other tried and true one, and sometimes it's hard to find out about them, playing the road team against a team that's got a big ceremony. And Calgary did one of the biggest ceremonies I've ever seen. I'm watching the Sabres-Leafs game on Hockey Night in Canada Saturday, and in the second intermission of the Sabres-Leafs game, Hockey Night in Canada goes and shows 20 minutes of the Jerome Iginla ceremony, which went on for another 40 minutes. The home team has no shot. Minnesota beat them that night. You always fade the home team on a big ceremony night.
All right, so one team I do want to touch on here real quickly. They're not in action tonight. They play Carolina tomorrow. Carolina, a similarly hot team, but I don't know if anybody's as hot right now as the Boston Bruins. 10 of their last 11, swept a West Coast trip against the Ducks, Kings, Sharks, and Golden Knights, did lose 2-1 to the Blues in a game where they're probably the better team for most of it, then come home and completely dominate San Jose and Tampa Bay up there at the Garden. The Bruins look deadly right now.
Yeah, no, great run by them. And the funny thing is, I mean, this is a big push for them, and it's a big time. They only have a 3-point lead over the Leafs, and home ice advantage really could be the difference in that series. That is a coin flip series, Boston and Toronto. They've kind of been on a collision course for a long time. So it's important to be getting these points. Funny thing is, I heard this from a bunch of people. A good friend of mine's a big Bruins fan. Oh, did you see there the Bruins killed the Lightning? Yeah, okay, really, please. What are the Lightning playing for right now? And that's another one to be watching. I mean, they've already got. They don't have to play another game. They've got the President's Trophy. At some point, you would envision, and I would think systematically the rest of the way, it would behoove Tampa Bay to be giving some guys some rest. Players may not be doing a cartwheel about that if they've got bonuses for certain things. But, Tampa Bay, they know where they are. They know, they're going to be the top seed. It would be wise for them to be resting guys. I think, not that he's bad. He's had a great season. I think you'll see a lot of Louis Domingue in the next two for Tampa.
Yeah, Tampa Bay 15 points clear of anybody else in the NHL, which is astonishing here. They still have 16 games left to go for this season. So, Brian, let's take a look at tonight's card, and we'll start with a team that obviously you and I care about quite a bit, the Buffalo Sabres. Been a Sabres fan since high school when I was watching you on the pre- and post-game shows on Empire Sports Network there. Sabres minus 125, minus 130 favorite against Edmonton. That's not a real great look, judging by how they started out the season, to be this small of a favorite at home against Edmonton.
Adam, it's funny, and I'm reverting back to the glass is half full, but then they have squandered a real opportunity. We see teams, the Astros, the Cubs, that, look what they're building, they're going to be great. I mean, we've seen those teams do it earlier than you thought they would, right? I mean, you get a 10-game winning streak at Thanksgiving. You're number one overall in the league, points-wise at least. And they just spit the bit. They had gone 31 games. Oh, by the way, Edmonton's in the same boat. 31 games now that they've been unable to record back-to-back wins. I mean, that's almost unthinkable. And, they'll play great, and then they'll play horrible. I look at the game tonight. I don't trust either team. I think the loss to Toronto, there have been many. I mean, their fate was sealed. We're seeing whatever. Here's the crazy thing is that everybody keeps hanging on to this fingernail of hope. I mean, it's crazy. Is it possible? I mean, look what Arizona's done, right? I mean, Arizona wasn't even in that discussion. All of a sudden, you go on a 6-game winning streak, you pick up 12 points. I mean, you can leapfrog a lot of teams. I like the over in the game. I think the one thing you'll get here, and I'm not sure. No, it's not on nationally in the States, but it's a nationally televised game in Canada. But it's Eichel versus McDavid, and both of these guys will be looking to put on a show against each other. They'll always be attached at the hip coming out of the draft. I'd look for those two guys to kind of go bonkers tonight. I'd look for goals.
All right, and then one other game here tonight in the NHL. This one, a much bigger type of game, a headline-grabbing kind of game. Toronto on the road at the Saddledome in Calgary. Similar line for this game. Calgary -125, -130 favorite. This is a really good game tonight.
Yeah, I'll be watching this one. I mean, it stands to reason. You think you would see goals. There's two things in play here. Toronto got mauled by the Islanders, and they were upset and panic-stricken about the way that game went down. Then they came back, and Buffalo was ahead of them on Saturday night, and Buffalo, as they are accustomed to do, kind of beat themselves, and Toronto won the game with ease. So Toronto's going to want to try to, build a little rhythm here because that Islanders thing was pretty distressing to the people in Toronto. Calgary, again, is coming off a loss. They've been dominant all year long. You'd look for a good effort and a bounce-back effort. Again, I give them the pass for having to play after the ceremony on Saturday night. The one thing kind of keeps me away from it, and I don't know so much in the NHL that there are look-ahead spots in the regular season. But for the better part of 3 weeks, I would say this. I've been saying to the people here in Vegas, and I've got a funny feeling these games with Vegas are going to be pretty intense with the Flames to start to send messages saying, we got a feeling we may bump into you in the playoffs. So it's a bit of a look-ahead spot for Calgary, but not that much. On paper, great game, but I'm just going to watch it and be entertained.
Calgary and Vegas play Wednesday night in Sin City, play Sunday in Calgary. So rapid revenge theory is something I talk about in my situational betting article over at BangTheBook.com. That could be in play there on Sunday for the loser of Wednesday night's game. So we talked about it a little bit at the top of the segment here, Brian, as we transition over to the college basketball side for a couple of minutes. Conference tournaments, 13 of them start this week, including one tonight in the Atlantic Sun. 19 of them start next week, as we've got 32 conferences here. Any general conference tournament betting strategies from you, Brian?
Yeah, generally speaking, and I would even say that it would apply even in a conference like this. Like Lipscomb's playing Kennesaw State tonight. Okay, I like the game over, but Lipscomb, Liberty, you think maybe on paper, right? They're on a collision course. The craziest thing is Jacksonville's a team with a horrible record that can score is actually hung with Lipscomb. Could maybe be a nice cover and an opportunity for it. And we're going to see this all the way through into the first round of the NCAA tournament. There'll be kids on the Lipscomb bench, right, that have been on the scout team and been practiced and part of the team. And, if Lipscomb has, a 20-point lead in the game tonight, the coach from Lipscomb's going to say, look, these games, the rest of our conference tournament are going to become tougher, and then they're going to be a big underdog in the NCAA tournament. A lot of these kids on the scout team, if Lipscomb's got the game in the cookie jar late, the last 3-4 minutes, these kids are going to get to play because the coach is going to say, this is the last chance they're going to get to play. That's also going to be the case in the first round of the NCAA tournament with high-end teams that know the second-round game is going to be tough and they've got a 20-point lead. They're going to give those kids 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes at the end of the game so that the rest of their lives they can say, I played an NCAA tournament game. And that's the end for those guys. So the backdoor cover with the big dogs is always in play with that particular scenario in mind. First-round games in the NCAA tournament, and then it stands to reason it would be first-round games in championship week as well.
Yeah, and, another thing, too, you kind of look at it almost with some correlation in that the back door is going to be open, but also, these kids that don't get a chance to play. I mean, we did see Chris Beard absolutely go off with the alley-oop that Texas Tech had late in their game. But I think there are going to be times where these coaches say, yeah, normally I dribble out the clock, but these guys don't get to play at all. So I'm going to let them go out there and have fun and take some shots.
Let them play. I mean, it doesn't being out there. Give them a chance to play for 5 minutes.
And then that could have a direct impact on the total as well, to where you would expect it to be a stone cold under with a 20-point lead and a team milking the clock, but maybe they do kind of go up and down the floor a little bit more.
No, but you're sitting there going, weaker guys are in there, so it probably helps the under. I'm with you. I think it actually kind of goes the other way because if the top guys are in there, the coach is about taking 20 seconds off the shot clock or whatever, burn some clock. But if the game's firmly in control, he's going to let these kids go, and they're going to play, and they're going to be out there. They're going to foul people. They're going to be trying to steal. You know what I mean? It's a basketball game. And actually, 4 minutes, it's actually played with urgency from those kids. And it actually probably ups the tempo of the game.
Yeah, definitely something you want to keep in mind, whether you're doing this stuff from a live betting standpoint or you're looking at the pregame positions. Keep that in mind here in these games, especially where you've got heavy conference tournament favorites or something like that playing these really, really weak teams in the first round and even the second round in some of these low major conferences here. So, Brian, again, we kind of use this Betting the Board segment as a grab bag to talk about all kinds of different things. NASCAR was in Vegas last weekend, the Pennzoil 400, also the Boyd Gaming 300 on the Xfinity Series side. What did you think about the new rules package? I know we talked about it a little bit last week. How did it affect the race, and how will it affect how you handicap going forward?
I think there's still a bit of a learning curve. I still think the best cars, the best teams still have the best engines, and it's still the same number of monster guys. I think restrictor plate racing, Talladega, places like that, you can still swing for the fences. In a lot of ways, it's kind of still the same characters. Adam, the one thing it did produce is some pretty crazy racing mid-pack. They were 3 and 4 wide stretches of a race that's usually spread out like a parade through town. But the top cars still go and separate themselves, and the top 5 or 6 at a 1.5-mile track, those guys pull away, and they're the contenders all day long from start to finish. It promotes, from a betting perspective, with matchups, I think it has an impact where it probably brings a guy into play, the quality of the driver in a match, which is always a thing, but it evens the car out, which makes the driver maybe even more important. But I think there's still a learning curve to see just, who's adapted to it, who's struggled, who's going to get better. The one thing we're seeing is teams that the same sort of stuff keeps happening. Last week, Blaney had the race won. There was an accident in the pits. Yesterday, Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon. Guys they made egregious mistakes, speeding on the pit lane, too many men in the pit box. Honestly, the team matters too. You can't beat yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's there's no spring training really when you talk about NASCAR. I mean, it's just sort of everyone's kind of either got to develop and learn on the fly, or just sort of figure things out and get thrown into the fire right away. So yeah, you would think as the season goes along, everything gets streamlined a little bit more, including adjustments to the rules package.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big learning curve. I mean, some things aren't going to change. Kevin Harvick's going to win the Phoenix races, right? I mean, put that on the board. But and then there are other teams like Kyle Busch's. He sped on the pit lane, but Busch's pit crew is always terrific. Brad Keselowski made a big push, just missed yesterday against Joey Logano. But, pit strategy, Keselowski's team, they always put him in a position. Even if they're struggling, they'll go to an alternative pit strategy or something to get track position. So it's like anything. It's like Bill Belichick knows what he's doing on the sidelines of a Patriots game. Some of these guys just know what to do all the time, and other guys make mistakes.
All right, so again, like I said, we just kind of talked about all sorts of different things here on these Betting the Board segments. Brian's a jack of all trades, and that's a big help for us here on the show. We talked last week about the Honda Classic, and we talked about the difficulty of this course and about some of the different guys that we were kind of looking at here. Brooks Koepka, Ricky Fowler tie for second. You've got Ryan Palmer in the top 5. Lucas Glover has been playing very well. The winner, Keith Mitchell, and the 6th place finisher, Vijay Singh. So that's kind of what we talked about last week where, this is a very, very hard course where you may want to take some longer shot guys. And, the stars were up there to some degree, but also some of those long shots in the running too.
That was the weirdest doggone tournament, bud. I'm really good with the Thursday Warriors, but we talked about last week when we did the preview for this. It said, this tournament, every year, the winning score, what did the kid get in at, 9? Did he make it to 9 or 8? I think 9. 9 under. And you had Ryan Palmer shoot a 63 yesterday. But this course, it plays like a U.S. Open. Last year it was the second toughest course on the circuit other than the U.S. Open at Shinnecock Hills. And there was attrition and ups and downs and highs and lows. A couple of guys I had Zach Johnson and Sung J M. Zach Johnson's right there in the first round. His guy's game's built for a major, fairways and greens. He hung around. He was okay. Then I got Sung J M. He's the leader at 60-1. He's the leader going to the third round. And he drove off a cliff on the first 3 holes of Saturday, never to be seen again. And the other guy we said, who wins the U.S. Open? 2 of them in a row. Koepka. Koepka was right there. And, Fowler made a nice push at the end. But when all is said and done, it's almost a shock that Koepka didn't kick the door down. But give the Mitchell kid credit. That was pretty impressive stuff.
All right, so we stay on the Florida swing here, but we go to Bay Hill for the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Much, much stronger field here this week than what we had last week. We don't have Dustin Johnson in the field this week, but Rory, Tiger, Rose, Koepka, Ricky, Day, DeChambeau, Matsuyama, Leishman, Molinari, Fleetwood, Mickelson, Stenson, Poulter, Watson. Really, really good field here for this tournament down at Bay Hill. And this is one where, with the exception of Matt Every, who won this thing in 2014 and 2015, you got to be really, really good to win this tournament usually.
In horse for course, right? Tiger, he's proven he's right there. I think he had an excuse with the weather in L.A. He knows this course. He loves this course. He's had some great career moments on this course. You would think, and he's driving the ball well, but in his backyard, I would think Tiger very much is a guy that's in with a big shot. McIlroy is, in the top 5 basically every tournament now. He's committed to playing the PGA Tour exclusively. McIlroy's a factor. It likely is a big name, as you allude to, that can win this thing. We're really early in the week, and Justin Rose is a great player, but he's actually one of the hosts for the tournament, and it's an honor to be one of the hosts in Arnold Palmer's absence now. That's a lot of off-course commitments and things that goes into it, which would make it, I think, pretty tough for Justin Rose this week. So I'd be looking to fade him because of that. But I'll do a lot more work during the week, Adam. Obviously, it's very early in the week. But I think we'll see Tiger in contention on Sunday. And the other thing, Bud, don't forget, this is a monster tournament. But they are tuning up and trying to peak at the right time for the Players' Championship. And this is guys trying to get their game really tuned up for an event that's a resume builder. And guys that win the Players go on to win majors.
Well, and as you look at this field here, we do have very, very early odds. I'm sure these will move around quite a bit. Rory's a little bit more than 7-1 to win it. Tiger's the second favorite at 10-1. 8-time champion here. Pulling these odds from 5 dimes, by the way. Justin Rose, a little over 11-1. Koepka and Fowler in the 12-1 range. Day, 14-1. DeChambeau, 18. Then a big jump down to Matsuyama and Leishman at 28. Tommy Fleetwood, a guy I know you have been looking at here a few times this year. He's 33-1. But also an interesting thing about this event, 120 players with the invitational status, and also for the first time this event is added to the Open qualifying series. So it is the first crack to gain entry into the Open Championship if you don't have that yet. So that's a big motivating factor for some of those guys that are probably going to be in the 80 to 100-1 range this week or a little bit higher.
Yeah, in Fleetwood, world-class player, and I took a shot with him, and he's kind of right there. I would say this, and it's a long way off, but I think a guy like Fleetwood, and watch for guys like this, they get a feel for these courses, and maybe next year's the year. I mean, it's a long way off, right? Course knowledge. I mean, Adam, you go out. I mean, it happens to me all the time to go play a course for the first time, and you play with somebody who plays there. Oh yeah, it's a dog leg left uphill. It's elevated. There's a creek on the left, and it's a little elevated, so it plays about a half club more. Okay. You're taking all this information from someone and you're hitting shots blind, right, for the first time. So even the pros, they got to go and get the feel for a course, and then next year Fleetwood would say, well, I know I can't do this on this hole, because you only get 1 or 2 or 3, mistakes that'll shoot you out of a tournament over the course of 4 days. So guys like Fleetwood specifically, and maybe even McIlroy, right, who's playing all these tournaments now and these courses for the first time. You watch for them. I mean, it's next year, but we'll keep tabs on that learning curve for these guys. Always looking ahead, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You always want to look ahead to be sure. I'll dig more into this tournament here this afternoon as well. Obviously, moving up a day does make it tougher for us with these golf tournaments. But in general, having watched this tournament before, knowing about Bay Hill, just sort of as a general broad brush statement here, what types of players are you looking for? Is this a bomber's course? Is this a putting course? Is this a you better hit the ball straight kind of course? How does this thing sort of play out?
It's a challenging course, and I think we'll look at the past winners. I mean, obviously, it's a course that kind of separates the cream, right? So, you obviously got it's a typical golf tournament, current form, come in, and you got to do all the right things. But clearly, it's a resume builder, and the best players in the world generally are winning this thing. So maybe it thins the herd to a degree. It's not like the Travelers or the John Deere Classic where you're, somebody, or the Greenbrier in West Virginia, like where out of nowhere Jonas Blix wins the thing. I think you got to be looking for a world-class player here.
Yeah, as you look at the recent winners, McIlroy last year, Leishman 2 years ago, Day in 16, Matt Every, as I said, 2014 and 15, Tiger back-to-back 2012 and 13, Martin Laird in 2011, Ernie Els in 2010, Tiger 08-09, Vijay Singh 07. So, yeah, it's been pretty much a who's who type of list, for the present day when this tournament was played. So, Brian Blessing, the host of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline. What do you got going on those two programs here this week, Brian?
Well, we're getting close, bud. We got March Madness right around the corner. Obviously, the push for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Vegas Hockey Hotline, we do that weekdays, 1 o'clock Pacific in Sportsbook Radio. We'll be out and about, by the way. And March Madness, if I could, I guess, if you're coming to town for the NCAA tournament on Tuesday, the 19th, at Club Madrid at Sunset Station, we'll be doing a March Madness seminar. Give a lot of great information out heading into the tournament. And then Thursday and Friday, 2 days of the NCAA tournament, I'll be doing the radio shows and hanging out in the Grand Ballroom downtown at the Golden Nugget with Tony Miller. Great venue to watch the games. So if you guys anybody's coming to town, stop down and say hi. Look forward to meeting you there. And all my radio shows are archived at sportsbookradio.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Brian Blessing. And we'll be starting to crank out some videos for you for this week at BangTheBook.com, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely looking forward to those. Check out our Bang the Book YouTube page. I'll have previews up here today of the AL Central and AL West. We'll get Brian's videos as well, including a look at this Arnold Palmer Invitational. And, very busy time of year, man. Thank you so much for being flexible, changing this one day forward for me. Really, really appreciate it. Brian Blessing, Sportsbook Radio, Vegas Hockey Hotline, at Brian Blessing on Twitter. Thank you so much, man. We'll talk to you again next week.
Buddy, I'm glad you're feeling better because, you were downright pathetic there for a while.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Makes me
you sounded like you climbed the Himalayas for 5 days in a row.
I felt like it. I'm telling you, man. Like, I guess it wasn't if it's gonna happen, it wasn't the worst time in the world. But if it would have happened like this week or this month, oh man. I mean, you know how it goes.
It sounded like it hurt to answer the phone.
It did. It hurt to do anything. But I'm feeling better now. And you know what? And I'm also happy for you as we wrap up this segment here. Happy for you that it's gotten warmer out there so you can quit complaining about the cold.
Pally, I'm telling you, we went from 7 inches of snow a week ago to 70 degrees this weekend. So the sticks are coming out. It's time to go out and start whacking the white pellet a little bit.
There you go, buddy. Enjoy that. Again, Brian Blessing, Sportsbook Radio. Blessing on Twitter. Take care, brother. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, bud. See you later.